Shalom. So, I made this video about John Dehlin, to LDS missionaries about John Dehlin, and it seems to have gotten some traction. And I'm going to I really think I'm going to be continuing to talk about the LDS a lot. Mostly because I think there's just so much there, uh, both on the LDS side and from this low corner of the internet. I have a large, so if you're coming from the LDS side, I have a large catalog of stuff. This is I it is a very small channel, but this is an actual community. So where we have discussions and stuff. I welcome people to engage with the community, and this seems to have well, so you guys can't see the dislikes, but I got a bunch of dislikes, which I can see on the back end. And ever since YouTube stopped doing the dislikes, basically the only reason people will come to a video just to dislike it is because they're in the grip of that ideological, I have to do something. And so I want to read the comments and then talk about some stuff. But okay, first, Halora, which apparently is an LDS thing. I am very new to this LDS stuff. I am trying to catch up, but he says, I love this outsider perspective. And frankly, I really think it's really interesting. I expected the LDS to be, first of all, I didn't realize what was going on in terms of the culture war. Now, as Jews, especially I think more so among Orthodox Jews, there is a sort of paranoia that I think Mormons have kind of lost in the past 50 years, which we haven't. So as Orthodox Jews, we're used to Reform, conservative, and secular Jews constantly trying to reform us, as well as all the Christians, and right. So we have the paranoia down. We don't have the hierarchy that the LDS does, which I actually think the hierarchy. I mean, I went to an LDS church service today, and if you're wondering what is an Orthodox Jew doing at an LDS church service, I don't actually live an Orthodox lifestyle. I hope that's perfectly clear in case you know nothing about Orthodox Judaism. So where I'm coming from is somewhere. So Sam said, once said, Jacob, I've never met a Jew like you. And Yosef responded, there are no Jews like Jacob. Which I kind of take as a compliment, kind of not. I mean, it would be nice if there were other Jews. So I'm not representing Orthodox Judaism. I hope that's clear. But I do come from an Orthodox Jewish background. I'm still involved in the Jewish community. I'm also involved in the PBK community in this little corner of the internet. And if you're interested in more, I don't know if the people watching are, well, I think most of the people watching, I mean, I got a bunch of views from Mormons on this video, and all the comments are from Mormons. Um, so if you want to know more about me, I have a huge catalog, and but for the LDS people, you need to be more paranoid. You really, really do, I think, because I don't think it's obvious. So I don't know if it's just Prop 8 which caused a lot of people to go, hey, we need to destroy the LDS. It doesn't have to be just Prop 8, which was California proposition defending traditional marriage, and it passed in California, which was shocking to the left because yeah, they could not imagine Prop 8 really passing. And I was actually pretty surprised as well. And the LDS got involved in that. And I think that's part of the reason that the LDS is more of a has become a focus of the culture war. But it's not just that. You have to understand that the critical, like, the people were we on this side of the culture war are fighting, and I have to make clear that the culture warriors on the right, that are supposedly on the right, we're not actually really conservative. That's one thing I've noticed. We're not actually conservative, and the people we're fighting aren't really liberals at all. There is a sort of left-right split, but even that has changed. There's an actual culture war going on ideological grounds, and to some extent, yeah, the critical race theory, postmodern neo-Marxist side is more, in many ways, I don't want to say liberal or even progressive. They're actually regressive in some ways, and reactionary in others. But they're definitely very radical in terms of wanting to make not incremental change. And then there's everybody else, right? And a lot of people have been pushed away from, I'll just call it critical theory, have been pushed away from the critical theory side over to the other side, whatever that is. And we are very disorganized. So that's part of the thing. But when I was in Salt Lake City, I visited Salt Lake City for the first time. I really felt like, hey, I really need to take a look at what's going on with the Mormons and the LDS. And the more I do, the more obvious it becomes to me that the culture war is actually being fought within the LDS in ways that I don't think a lot of us have actually been paying attention to, partially because the LDS is so actually conservative, right? So the people who get involved in the culture war aren't really conservative. They're usually reactionaries, right? Um, the actual conservatives are people who just like they just want to live their life, and they're not thinking about other people, right? Tucker Carlson once said this. He said, "There's nobody in some little town in rural I forget where exactly he said, but could be rural Georgia, could be Alabama, could be any place where, somebody who's deeply conservative is living. They're not worried that maybe somebody in New York is disagrees with them or what they're doing. They're not staying up at night thinking about that, right? And even with, for example, abortion, right, where to some extent the people who are deeply conservative really do feel that there's something wrong, they tend to be just fine as long as it's not within their community, right? They just they tend to be very territorial. Actually, conservative people tend to be very territorial. And but there are plenty of people in Los Angeles and in New York who are staying up at night, like thinking about how Mormons are living their life in Salt Lake City or Provo, or like, you know, and with actual designs. Um, and I would turn you to the work of John Vervaeke to see why that is. Um, just to show how not LDS I am. I actually think the missionary spirit comes from a deep unease within you, right? In Judaism, we don't have a missionary. We're not out to proselytize, and I actually think uh, I've sensed that if it wasn't for the this absolute feeling like we can't get away from being missionaries, that a lot of um, a lot of Mormons just like they're very uncomfortable as missionaries, partially because of that. They're like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to, let people live however they want to live. But there are a lot of people who don't have their own children, don't have their own families. Um, when so I'm an insurance agent, and one of the things here in Los Angeles I see as I'm signing people up for Medicare is people who have no family, have no children, are turning 65 or older. Their career was their whole life, and they have nothing. They realize their life is sunsetting, and they have nobody who's going to be with them into their old age. This was something PBK actually brought up with Vaush. Um, and so as modernity is really falling apart, right? And those of us in our corner of the internet, as opposed to the LDS, see this so clearly. Um, the However, like this materialistic modernist thing is falling apart. um well, this one comment, okay, so um another comment I got was from this Brian G guy, and it's really really long, and frankly, being the paranoid person that I am, my guess is this is a bot. And by bot, I don't mean that it was computer generated. This was a human who sat and wrote this. I think this was a paid human who sat and wrote this. And a lot of people are like, how paranoid can you be? Why would like your little channel warrant somebody paying somebody to come and write a comment? And for me, that just shows an intense ignorance of the culture war. There are definitely people who are getting involved in the small channels, in the small discussions. That's what the anonymity of the internet has allowed, right? And there are people who are out there really spending their life evangelizing for critical theory. The problem is critical theory is a solvent. It all it does is criticize and take things apart. It leaves you with nothing, right? And that's what's going on. So if I'm wrong and Brian G is an actual person, I wrote, if you're a real person, I would love to have you on a live stream with your video on and discuss this. I have my doubts, call me paranoid, but there is obviously a sustained effort to attack the LDS, right? So if Brian G is an actual person, I am more than willing to have him on. And same thing for Nova Bad Kitty, but like this, we had a little back and forth, and so this comment has really stayed with me. Really, I have never heard or seen John criticize Mormons. Excuse me? I think you never will. His problems are with Mormonism and the Brethren. Well, yes, of course. If you're trying to win a culture war against the LDS, of course you're going to attack the leadership. You're not going to attack the people you're trying to like. The naivete is just amazing. Better alternative. The good things are about Mormons are not exclusive to Mormons. You do realize that, right? Oh my God. They aren't? Did you watch the South Park episode about Mormons? I actually haven't watched the whole thing. I've watched a lot of snippets. I should probably sit down and watch the whole thing. I haven't watched South Park in many years. But there's a reason why Mormons have this, like, the criticism of them is, why are these people so nice? And it's true. It's like, why are these people this disgustingly sweet and nice? There's a reason why that stereotype exists. And really, that is the reason why I started looking and why this has become such a point of attention for me, right? And I have to say, like, her first thing, her first response to me was, where did it go? Why isn't her first response there? I wonder if it got censored by... Oh. Yeah, I don't know what happened to her video. Maybe she deleted it, but I responded like, I'm not, I don't believe in Joseph Smith or any of the LDS teachings. I'm not even a Christian. This has nothing to do with like the stuff she was talking about. I wish I had the comment, but the the framing by John Dehlin, it's there to try to deconstruct these. They're trying to deconstruct the faith of Mormons. Okay, and let's all agree, it's all false, right? The LDS is completely false. Okay, now what? Now what? Right? Because that's the problem with critical theory. They're constantly trying to break things down, and it's funny. Of course, I believe that truth matters. I actually do believe that truth matters, but the critical theorists don't, right? So as far as they're concerned, if there's a narrative that's working for you, then have at it. What's wrong with that narrative? Who's to say what's right and what's wrong? And history is all a power play and da 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 da. So the question of whether actually Joseph Smith talked to God or not, like that's irrelevant, right? So what is John Dehlin steering you towards, right? He has criticisms of the Brethren and Mormonism, like going through the CES letter with in depth, like constantly. And then, which was really interesting to me, he had 3 episodes. I mean, it's in 3 parts. His episodes are really long, and I think there was a reason for that. With Tova Mervis. Now, you have to understand, Tova Mervis, even in the New York Times, got called out for being a fiction writer. She doesn't. She comes from modern Orthodoxy, right? And the story that they were telling, the narrative was just so constructed in a way of like making Mormons feel this kinship. It felt like, and this is from 4 years ago, it felt like they're just importing the tactics with which they try to deconstruct Orthodox Judaism and Hasidism, and move people away from it. And there's a reason why they feel like they have to do that, because when you look at, for example, the politics of Israel, in over the past 20 years, it's shifted way to the right, away from everything they want. Why? The Orthodox Jews have lots of kids. The secular Jews have maybe 1, maybe 2, if that. Most of them don't have any kids, right? So they just end up being completely outnumbered. And the same is true in the United States. Mormons have large families. Catholics have large families. Orthodox Jews have large families. And the same thing is true in within the Jewish community, right? It's the Orthodox Jews that have large families. And so Reform and conservative synagogues are peopled by people who have left Orthodox Judaism because they don't replace themselves. So these dynamics are really taking place. And I mean, if people really want, I'll go through. The part 1 was just so cliche and uninteresting. I don't think I'm gonna watch parts 2 and 3. But this is an open invitation for conversation. If the people commenting, sorry.
Usually bras fit small chested.
If people commenting want to come on my channel, want to discuss this, I'm more than willing to. If my viewers, I actually do encourage you to start looking at what's going on within the LDS, because I did not realize the culture war was so heated up in right on my doorsteps. And it really seems like it is. What's there to say? Good question, Roman. It seems to me like, so John Dehlin is a psychologist. He's a PhD, right? And how completely he's going against anything that is the actual science, right? The actual, so when you look at Jordan Peterson and John Vervaeke and Brett Weinstein and the people who actually believe in science, right? And you compare it to woke critical theories of psychology, they're just so obviously wrong to anybody who actually has a scientific point of view. There's a reason why James Lindsay has had the reaction that he has had. And it's really interesting seeing how modernity is deconstructing the LDS. And it really is much better than Christianity, partially because, I mean, honestly, if you're going to be propositional, right, there's a lot to attack in the LDS. Of course, vast majority of people who are propositional, like, they don't care to be evangelistic. It's I really have to wonder if John Dehlin is a tool or evil, right? And to some extent, it's really interesting stuff for me. It's really interesting stuff because when you're talking about a religion that's not a religion, right? When you're talking about Vervaeke stuff, when you're talking about Jordan Peterson type stuff, right? Or what's his name? Brett Weinstein, right? Secular people realizing that there is a genuine meaning crisis. This is the perfect case study, I think. It really is. The LDS. My last 2 weeks has been an eye-opening thing, because I mean, there's that joke which has really been guiding me in this. Why did God create Mormons? So Christians would know how Jews feel. And in my apocalyptic view, where Christianity unravels and people see the truth of Judaism, it really seems like the LDS and Mormonism is where that unraveling is most clear, right? And people in our corner, especially heavyweight intellectual stuff, and I realized this when I made a comment on one of John Delin's videos, and somebody sarcastically says the smartest person in the room. And I realized that John Delin is quite likely the smartest person in the room in a lot of these discussions. Because I have to say, like, there are real problems. I'll send you an invite. Hold on, Roman. I'll send you an invite. Here. You can just click on the link I sent you, and you can come on if you want to. I sent it in Discord. Yeah, I mean, I've part of what I've been trying to do is to have actual conversations as opposed to me setting things out propositionally, just myself, because I don't think that really works very well. I did want to, so I was talking to somebody about this verse today, and it really hit me, so I wanted to go through it. So this is Psalm 131 is really short. Hey, Roman.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can. There is a slight echo.
Okay. Sorry, I'm in the kitchen.
No, it's fine. The echo was coming from it was I could hear me speaking through your thing, but don't worry about it. Let me just make you equal with me. Hey,
okay, cool.
nice to finally get to speak to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is really interesting. It's something like Christ is the truth, and then like that goes away, and then people's attachment to the truth kind of goes away too. It's like when people warn you about like when you lose religion, like you lose your morality, and like that's not true. There's no way that's true, and then it turns out it's a little true. It's weird to see in full time.
Well, I mean, that's what John Vervaeke. I don't know how familiar are you with Vervaeke?
A little bit. I saw his stuff. He had this series on meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw like the first like 5 or 10 I had playing. But he's got like 50 of those. I haven't seen them all yet.
Yeah, I stopped watching because a lot of what he says is just so much review for me. But yeah, he is a brilliant thinker. And he's one of the people who's I guess there's been like this Toronto School of Psychology, because he worked with Jordan Peterson, and that psychology department, they've noticed, hey, look, people, we've claimed that you can live this modern materialist lifestyle and you can be even happier or better off than if you didn't have all this religious baggage. And being actual scientists, they looked into it and they're like, that's not actually true. There's an evolutionary there's a scientific problem with materialism, and it doesn't work by itself. And that's why you get people like Brett Weinstein, who his book, he wrote with his wife at 20, A 20th Century Guide to Hunter-Gatherers, I think the book is. I haven't read it yet. I do want to, but I have so many books on my list. But I know what he's talking about there. His kind of... Did you watch his discussion with Richard Dawkins?
I did not. That sounds kind of cool, though. I didn't know he did that.
In Chicago. So the video is horrible. It cuts out in parts. And I think that's part of the reason it hasn't been viewed as much as it should have been. It was done really badly by this guy. It's a whole story. But there was a discussion between Brett Weinstein and Richard Dawkins. And Brett Weinstein, as an evolutionary psychologist, like confronted Dawkins with the idea that religion is part of the extended phenotype of humanity. So an extended phenotype, just to explain, so beavers make dams. A beaver genetically, right, is set up to make a dam, and because that's what they do, right? So
Right.
When we talk about phenotype, we usually talk about things within the body, right? And I don't know if Dawkins was the one who introduced the idea of an extended phenotype, or who it was, but extended phenotype is the idea that there are things which are a result of your genes, but aren't within your body, right? And part of the extended phenotype of humanity, apparently, if you're looking at it just scientifically, is religion.
That makes sense. Yes, it's a human universal. Science is not.
Yeah. And that is that. And when he hit Dawkins with that, I think Dawkins still hasn't really recovered from that idea. He certainly toned down his atheism quite a bit over the past couple of years. Sam Harris, I think, has really, like, the new atheists have kind of started to realize, what we were talking about just doesn't work, right? New atheism, and this is something Brett Weinstein also said. He said it on Dave Rubin, and I've been quoting it for like the past 4 years. He said, atheism is a defensible position. New atheism is not. And people got all over him, like, so define new atheism. New atheism is the idea that religion is a bad thing, right? That we've always had atheists, people who say that I can't believe in God. We haven't had people so dumb as to say that religion makes human life worse. I guess we've had some of them, but like the new atheists really came out with that, and it has no basis in fact. So Max says, David Sloan Wilson's book Darwin's Cathedral is the book to read on religion as group level selection. Isn't he? I haven't read the book. Isn't he the person who talked about religion as a spandrel? I'm just gonna Google this. Spandrel. So a spandrel in evolution is the idea that in biology is the idea that sometimes there are things which develop in and they're not bad enough for that they're neither an adaptation or a maladaptation. They're just not bad enough. So Stephen Jay Gould and Richard Lewontin came up with spandrels. The people who are actual. Sam had a recent interview with. Oh, now I remember. Yes. So Sam Adams' channel, in case anybody's thing. Yeah. Sorry, Roman. I'm talking a lot.
Yeah. I guess the question is like, how complicated of an adaptation is religion? Like, I don't actually know that. Like, I don't know what's involved. Like, what is happening when you pray? Like, is like something's happened to your brain, but like, what is the thing that's happening? And is that a complicated thing? And could that be a sort of thing that could evolve by accident? And no one's really, it's not, when I say by accident, right? I just mean that it's like simple enough that it wasn't selected for. And that seems probably not true. I think Bernanke talked about this, right? That there's like a shaman in the group, and this shaman role was filled, and it helped people adapt somehow, right? And
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so Vervaeke's most recent, well, I don't know if it's the most recent video on his channel, but I just watched it. He went and he gave a speech. I believe it was at Cambridge. It was in the United Kingdom, and he was an invited scholar. Max says he starts the book with the beehive metaphor. Bees are hives. People have churches. Have hives. People have churches. I mean,
That makes sense. It glues society together. I sort of see how it works.
yeah, the first cities were all built around temples. All the early cities were built around temples. I mean, there's two parts to this. There's the pragmatic side, and there's I actually believe this stuff. So I actually believe in religion. I actually believe there is a God, because I just believe it's all too perfect. But so I don't want to give the impression that I'm some sort of atheist who believes in Spinoza's God. Mm-hmm. But Spinoza's God is the minimum, right? If you don't even believe in Spinoza's concept of God, right? This in effect reality, right? The laws of physics, nature, right? If you don't at least believe in that, you're like a human being you're like a computer with a human being without a theology in the Jungian sense is like a computer without an operating system. And Jordan Peterson has said that.
So, okay, this is like that C.S. Lewis quote, like where I believe in Jesus not because I like see him, but I believe in him because it's by him that I see everything else. This is the sort of idea. This is the way you've organized reality. Okay, so to me, there's like three different things going on. There's like this idea of like God as the creator, and so God has sort of organized the universe. But like when you say the universe is perfect, like, well, why is the universe perfect? And it's like, oh, right, I'm adapted for the universe, right? God, like there was already a hole shaped for me and I filled it, right? That's what evolution says. And that's sort of, if you think God did it, then you think God made the hole for you and then he put you in there. And then, so you have that, and then you have this idea of their pragmatic religion. Okay, this is how I'm going to organize the world. And if I need a myth to do it, I'll get a myth. No problem. But I think about it more phenomenologically. Like I think, oh, like, okay. Are you, to me, like, I can't get around this idea of like, I'm in a world and I'm like seeing all this stuff and that's how I know it's real. Right. And if it's not real, if I'm in the matrix, I can't help it. I still believe it. And that's how I feel about God. Like I have this experience of God. And if I didn't have that experience, I would immediately stop believing in God. I would just boom, not because he wouldn't be real, but because I can't keep track of him. Like, sorry, where are you? You don't exist anymore. Right? and that's not because of my problem with God. That's a problem with me, right? But that's the only way any of this makes sense to me. Is like on this very ground level of like, okay, what are you experiencing? Are you experiencing God right now?
Okay, I mean, the problem with criticizing that, and people can criticize it, and this is my problem with John Dolan and why I started making this whole video, is I could probably find I could probably make arguments about how there are problems with what you're saying because schizophrenics,
Sure.
you know,
And they're
right?
so like I don't know if you've seen on my post about who's that guy, Terry Davis. I just love that guy. I think he really loves God, you know, and I can't help but love that too. I can't help but love someone who loves God like that. But obviously he's schizophrenic. Obviously he's out of his mind, right? But you see the love in him, and like you can't help but love him too. And that doesn't mean that it's true, but you can't not believe it. If God is talking to you right now, whether it's really God or not, you can't not believe it, right? That's just kind of where you're at.
What I was, so I hear you. I could criticize what you're saying. The thing is, what is the standard? Like, where am I standing? And this is what Jonathan Pageau says a lot, and I think he's right. He says, where are you standing from in this objective, like, oh, I'm going to criticize. So you can't have a perspective from nowhere. You have to have a perspective from somewhere, right? And sure. My perspective, like, I can definitely assert, no. There are many reasons why you should not actually trust just your senses, because your senses can in fact be lying to you, and you can tell that they're lying to you, and it is to your benefit to ground them in something beyond just the phenomenological. I'm never going to be able to say that word correctly. But that comes from somewhere. That comes from my belief in Judaism, which says that truth is eternal and that there is a value to that which. So I don't know if you've heard this, but it's very integral to Jewish theology. The Hebrew word emet, truth, is written Aleph Mem Taf, okay? And Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet, Mem is in the middle of the alphabet, Taf is at the end of the alphabet. And I actually made this thing to show you.
That's interesting. So Aleph Mem Tat would be like Aleph is strength, Mem is water, and Tat is this the one that means mark, right? So this is the mark of strong water.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of that type of alphabet. So this is something there are Christians, especially on YouTube, who do. I'm not a huge fan of it. Okay. So this is I made this graphic. So on top is sheker, which means false, which means a lie, right? In Hebrew. And on the bottom is emet, which means truth. And you'll notice the letters shin, kaf, resh. So the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet is taf. The next three letters are in order resh, kuf, shin.
Oh, okay? Nice. So it's like working backwards.
Hold on, kuf, resh, shin. Sorry, but it's the last three letters other than taf, and emet is the actual last letter, the first letter, and the middle letter. And notice that like the letters shin, kuf, resh, if they were actual figures, they would fall over because they don't have solid foundations. Whereas aleph, mem, and taf can all stand, right? And I think this is from the Talmud. It says sheker ein lo reglayim. Truths do not have legs, cannot stand, right? So theologically, we have this belief, right, that emet is truth at all times. It's not lopsided. It doesn't fall over. It's eternal, right? And and sheker is that which is fleeting, that doesn't last, that isn't permanent, is temporal, right?
Mhm.
And in fact, we call this world Alma de Shikra, right? The world of lies, of deception, because it so much of it isn't permanent and eternal, right? That's the corruption of the world in which we live in now. Okay.
Yeah, but that's like, so like, I don't know, like I immediately think like the lotus eater, demons controlling my mind stuff, and then I think about the standard Buddhist stuff where, you know, all the stuff like disintegrates into individual points of energy or whatever. But like, this is your thing, like, oh right, it's a permanent, and underneath it, hopefully underneath all that stuff is God, who is a permanent. Is this the idea?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That God is right. That the Torah is Torat Emet and Hashem Emet, right? Havaya Emet, right? That God is, our God is the God of truth, and His Torah is the Torah of truth. And this, I completely understand. I am coming from a place. I am coming from, because my theology is based on all of this stuff, but it works. I'm able, wherever I look, I see the truth. And if it weren't true, right? If I were to actually find out, you know what, there never were any Jews in Egypt, there never was an Exodus, none of that happened, right?
Mhm.
So within my framework, I would see a contradiction, and I have to. I have no idea what somebody's talking like. This happens when you this happens when you have Jewish, Orthodox Jewish, in you end up with somebody bringing up foreskins for no good reason. Which is funny because I actually was going to tell a story about foreskins. In fact, you know what? I'm going to tell this story about foreskins. I'm sorry, Roman. You're going to have to hear about foreskins. So, just to explain this whole concept of criticism, right? There are all these Jews, and a lot of the intactivists, the people who are anti-circumcision, they're like, my parents circumcised me and they deprived me of my foreskin, and like, it's, for a lot of them, it's a central thing in their life. Now, this is complete bullshit. I've spoken to several men who have had circumcisions as adults, and they've told me this is complete bullshit, and it is. But without any context, right? You're criticizing, why would you do this? Why would you deprive me of my foreskin, right? Well, when I was a kid, in elementary school, I had a friend who was from a religious Mormon family. And we all knew that he was not circumcised. Why? Because it was a huge deal to him. Because everybody else was, and he felt like, and this was a secular school, but his parents, because of their religiosity, did not circumcise him. Everybody else was in fact circumcised, including the Mormons and everybody else, right? And while nobody would have known it, for him it was a huge deal. And like, into our teens, he made it a huge deal, and it was this source of conflict with his parents. Why won't you let me be like everyone else? He wanted to get circumcised. His parents were like, once you turn 18, it's up to you. You're not getting circumcised until you're 18. And it became this huge source of conflict for him, right? Because it's really easy to criticize that which is, right? To say, my parents should have let me have my foreskin, or on his side, my parents should have let me be like everybody else, right? And the fact is, if you're actually being a serious person, you can't just look at the one little criticism. You have to look at the entirety of the situation. And in the entirety of the life of people, like if your foreskin is that important to you, there's something already wrong. Whether you're this friend of mine who was obsessed with his parents not letting him get circumcised, or these Jews who are obsessed with having been circumcised, in reality, your concentration, your framing of the situation over circumcision is just so insane itself that it shows your framing is wrong. I'm guessing this Jack Johnson guy will not be happy with this explanation.
Circumcision. I don't know. This always seems like fear of missing out. It's like, oh man, my life would have gone so much better. All I had to do was get circumcised. It's very
right.
weird.
There are people who have they have foreskin reconstruction surgery, and they're like, it's the biggest. I ended up in a discussion on Twitter with this guy who was like, yeah, I had foreskin reconstruction surgery, and although it'll never be like a natural foreskin, my life is so much better. And it's like, dude, like,
yeah.
your focus is just so off, right? And I know adults who got circumcised because obviously being Max says foreskin reconstruction seems like a stretch, because within Orthodox Judaism, there's certainly people who were not circumcised, especially from Russia, or their parents were secular or whatever, and they become religious, and obviously they have to get circumcised because it is part of our religion. And frankly, when I was on campus as a rabbi, I felt a duty to know that if I was encouraging people to get circumcised, like if it actually does affect your sex life, I wanted to know if that's true. And that's why I did speak to people who were circumcised as adults, and they're like, yeah, I can't feel any difference. Like sex before and after was no different. Mm. And when you look into the medical literature, if you Google it, there are actually so many websites that have been set up by intactivists. Like the internet discussion on circumcision has been completely taken over by intactivists. They call themselves intactivists because they're activists for being intact males, right? They don't call themselves uncircumcised. They call themselves intact males because it's just such an interesting framing. So I'm sorry, I had to submit you to my discussion on circumcision.
Yeah, the only other people I've seen do this were like straight up were like Nazi adjacent people, and they'll like do the same thing with Yom Kippur. They'll be like, we love the chicken so much, we won't like you guys, like you kill a chicken, you wave it over your head, you're like,
yeah, I have to say, kaparot, like I am actually quite unhappy with how kaparot are done personally, and I was even when I was much more towing the line of Orthodox Judaism, but that's beside the point. No. Your framing tells me your underlying value system, right? if your life is based, and that's why I think you see so many of these secular materialists who are vegans, right? They're like, no, we have to protect the animals, and they, because it become like it's their framing of the whole situation, and to some extent, you have to wonder: can you even have a discussion at that level of analysis? Right? If somebody brings up the issue of circumcision, right, and they're not just using it as an example like I am, but this is an actually really important part of their life, is being a circumcision activist or an intactivist or whatever. It's like, your attention has been like,
you've literally become the tip of your penis. You've made your identity. It's yeah, it's very strange.
You're like, you are being guided by the tip of your penis. You are being led in your life by the tip of your penis, and there. Okay, I'm not going to stay on this circumcision stuff. What else do you want to talk about? If you're willing to, tell me more about yourself. I don't know anything about you.
Okay, so all right. Let me. I remember you. I didn't catch the whole video, but I remember at one point you were like talking about people who think they are to God, and like these people are kind of silly, and this isn't really a good ground for religion. And I'm fair warning, I'm one of those silly people, and I was learning like Japanese. I learned like a bunch of kanji, and I was like, sweet, like God really wants me to do this. I'll go do this. I'll go become a missionary in like Japan or something. It'll be great. And like, no, I didn't do that. And eventually I got into Hebrew stuff, partially through you, I think. And I was looking at, I guess, I don't know how real these are. Like, I couldn't confirm for myself, like how real this is. I don't know if Hebrew to know this, but it does look like the letters have meanings. It does look like they have some relationship, maybe even to like ancient Egyptian or something. And it seemed like you could, what they did with RTK, which is remember the kanji, which is the way to memorize the kanji, is that you take these Chinese characters. These Chinese characters are made of radicals. These radicals have meanings. And you can construct little stories to memorize the individual kanji and what they mean. And I was thinking you could do that with Hebrew. You could take the individual letters that have meanings. You could use it to construct the word meanings. You could learn all the words in the Bible in Hebrew. This is sort of my plan. I'm going to try to make a program to teach people Hebrew.
Okay, last thing about circumcision, but circumcision destroyed my life. This is the person we're talking about. This is the person we're talking about. Like, I have no idea what the rest of this.
That's really true, but like, I'm not sure I believe it. But I feel bad for you.
I believe there's a lot wrong in his life. It's not his foreskin. Like that's like the people who believe that the earth that the sun travels around the earth, right? The sun's much bigger than the earth. The earth is not affecting the route of the sun, right? So you can focus. I mean, I actually do believe that the sun goes around the earth, in the idea that my focus is the earth, right?
Sure.
But
if you're you see the sunrise, you see it set, it looks like it's going around you. Sure.
That is where I am. Like, that is my perspective, right? And so his perspective is he sees his life through circumcision, but the problem there is very similar to the people who actually think, oh no, there has to, like, the earth is causing the sun to move in a certain way, as opposed to understanding the physics of it really. And the physics of his life, his foreskin has had very little effect. Everything else that he attributes to it is not actually affected by, because part of the thing is like my friend from elementary school, like I wouldn't have had any idea. I would not have had any idea that he was not circumcised if he didn't make it a huge point. Like, how many times have you actually seen other men's penises and like looked and like I have no idea.
Right.
Right.
Probably looking. The thing is, so people do get fixated on these things. I remember being younger and like really upset. Like I hadn't get laid. I never had sex before. I didn't have it for a long time. You know, eventually I got married. Eventually I did all this stuff. But like when I was young, it was really like a concern for me, right? And it's silly, but like I don't know. And eventually I got over it. But I don't know how you tell someone that, you know, like, oh hey, how do I know the thing I care about is really silly? And I don't know. I don't know how you'd figure that out. Except you either experience it and you figure out, oh, it's not a big deal, or you have to like change your perspective. But I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to like take someone's head off, put it in a higher place so they get a better perspective on things. I have no idea how to do this. I don't know how to get inside a person, show them, no, you're looking here, point over here. Right? I don't know how to do that. It's very, how would you even, right?
Well, that is the point of therapy. So this guy says, I have permanent nerve damage in my wrist and reduced feeling in my fingers from extreme RSI. I have no idea what RSI is.
Repetitive stress injury. People get it usually from
using so for like masturbating because he was circumcised. Like, is that what he's saying?
Maybe
I have no clue.
It happens a lot to computer programmers because they type too much or they use their mouse too much or something. But I don't know about that guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to wonder if he's trolling or not. He may just be trolling. I have no clue. But anyway, I think, in fact, talking to people is one of the ways we do get into their mind. And one way we do realize. So, for example, you know the famous white or blue dress on the internet?
Yeah, I know that the dress that it's gold or blue, but whatever. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Whatever it is, right? The only way we know that there is a sort of illusion going on there is we actually talk to other people and other people are like, no, it's blue. No, it's gold, right? And so we outsource our sanity. We do outsource our sanity.
That's true.
Right? And that's distributed cognition. And that's part of what John Vervaeke, and I know I've become this huge John Vervaeke evangelist, but I think he's actually the scientist who has his finger on what is most dysfunctional in our society right now. Him and I have to say Ian McGilchrist, although again, Ian McGilchrist, like there is something going on where we're realizing that this materialist look at the world doesn't work. And so in communicating with each other, talking with each other, we do change each other's perceptions. We do change how we view things, and people do have conversions, do change. Like, there are people who have become Jewish, and there are Jews who have become other. So you said you were thinking of becoming an evangelist. What denomination? Like, what is your creed? What are you?
I don't even go to church now. I should probably, but
yes, you should.
But I don't. And I don't know. Like I remember like going through an atheist phase, and then I sort of like realized that I felt like God was talking to me, and then for a while I was going to a charismatic church. Um,
Were you raised within the church?
I was, yeah, my family's charismatic. Like not my parents aren't really, are kind of the same way. Like my mom is kind of like has some like new agey beliefs, but like my grandparents are my grandparents on her side are charismatic, and my grandparents on my father's side are like I think they converted from like Baptist to like Presbyterian. But yeah.
Do you speak in tongues?
So I used to, and at some point I was in church and I was praying in tongues, and I felt like God was telling me to stop. And so every once in a while I do it just to see that I can still do it, but otherwise I don't do it. I like this doesn't seem like what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, so this is tomorrow. I'm having a discussion. We're probably not actually going to talk about tongues with Sam's dad, but when I met Sam's dad in Chicago, the one thing we talked about the most was Sam and his father both believe in speaking in tongues, and I can't find a source for it that's not demonic in Judaism. Like within Judaism, speaking in tongues, as in you speak and other people cannot understand you,
Mm-hmm.
there, all of that looks very unholy. The idea that you could speak and like other people do understand you, right? That type of speaking in tongues, yeah, that does exist in the Torah. But that's miraculous understanding, not some sort of like it does not seem at all holy to me, which is very worrying because Sam is one of the people I respect the most, and I'm afraid for like what it could do to him. So I'm talking to his dad tomorrow.
Okay. So my sort of take on speaking in tongues is that like there's a thing, and the word we have for it is from Hinduism. So there's your hint. It's called a kriya, and it's where people will meditate or do certain other things, and they will sort of like spontaneously move. They'll like have little jerks in their spine or whatever, or like in their shoulder or something like this. And I think that that's what it is. I think it's you are concentrating sort of a little too hard, like not actually in a way that's like it's almost the way you should do for prayer, but not really. And this causes you to jerk around a little bit. And I think for whatever reason, with Christian charismatics, it happens with their tongue. They have a kriya in their tongue. It's just energy dispersing because they're concentrating too hard. That's it. I don't think it's anything else. I don't think it's holy. I don't think it's unholy. I think it's kind of meaningless.
My hope is it's just meaningless. I have not figured it out, but it does not like, and especially like one thing, the charismatics also tends to be the type of people who really say so okay. He's like, I'm not trolling, I was homeschooled. Okay, now that's a whole different thing. Homeschooled, but that becomes part of it, right?
I live in a shed. That does sound like some weird like internet character like thing. And if it's real, I feel bad for you. I don't know what I can do for you though. But
Well,
I think you're trolling, man.
And if the homeschooling is the problem, like first of all, same problem of grass is greener on the other side, because I remember going to school and it being more of an interruption of my learning process than it was a thing. And so again, and hopefully, having this discussion with him, maybe if he's actually not trolling, he realizes it's not the circumcision. Maybe
Well,
it's the homeschool. I don't think it is the homeschool, but it's your relationship with your parents, and you're making the circumcision the focus of that.
okay. Yeah, I mean, like I'd love to help him out. I don't know what I can do for him though. Right?
Let's get back to this is all okay. Jack, if you actually want to come on, go onto my Discord server, DM me, and if you're willing to turn on your video camera, we'll talk, because that's become my way of making sure I'm not just talking to a troll. I don't think you can troll the same way when you're actually talking to someone with the camera on. I'm hoping that's at least been my best way of securing cognition that way, where you're actually talking to someone. You can hear in their voice, they're kind of sort of looking you in the eye, and so hopefully that's a thing. But so you were saying you were raised kind of charismatic, you were going to charismatic churches, and you went through an atheist phase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What brought you out of the atheist phase?
Literally, again, like if you think God is talking to you, you can't. What are you gonna do about it? And that's again, like it's hard not to believe in things you're experiencing, right? And that's just kind of what was happening. It was like, oh right, God is talking to me. What am I gonna do about it? And well, like it's hard to you can only go around saying you're an atheist for so long, At least to yourself, you got to be like, okay, I guess I believe in God.
Well, Sam Harris would be saying, well, are you hearing voices? Are you schizophrenic?
It's not like that.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a feeling. I understand, but I wanted you to make that clear. It's not like you're dissociating from reality.
Not anymore. Anyone else does, right? Like we have thoughts. These are in some ways voices in our heads. In some ways they aren't real, right? And yet that's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird way to put it. That said, everybody has experiences like this. Like how true they are, like we all have to figure that out. And I'm figuring it out just like everyone else, I think.
I highly recommend listening to Vervaeke's speech at Cambridge, because he actually talks about this. And really, ultimately, I think the answer to the atheists is what gets you up. Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why don't you just take a hit of cocaine with a bullet chaser, right?
So people say this about like their belief in God, and I kind of don't believe it. Okay, like my belief in God didn't like change my feeling about like how I felt about my life. And in other ways, like I have had like these sort of spiritual experiences, and like when I sort of I came to grips with like, oh, when you die, you don't like just go away. There's like your life sort of continues. That didn't bring me happiness or peace. That brought me like actually kind of a lot of suffering. And I don't know. I don't know why people think this is where your meaning comes from, but somehow you can't detach them. Somehow they seem connected, but they don't seem like obviously connected the way you would think they would be.
Do you have kids?
I don't. I got married 3 years ago, but I don't have kids yet.
Well, God should bless you with all manner of good, and if that includes kids, you should have kids. One of the things, so Jordan Peterson, his Maps of Meaning class from 2017, I want to say, he recorded it and put it online. And So it's a full semester course, and the whole time he's talking about like meaning and deep questions of philosophy.
Mhm.
And the last 5 minutes, he basically says, when you have a child in your hand and somebody asks you deep philosophical questions about the meaning of life, all you can say is, why are you asking me such stupid questions?
Mhm.
And you need somebody like Jordan Peterson going through a whole semester of asking deep philosophical questions to really understand the value of that question of, why are you asking me such, like, when you have meaning in your life, when that kid is in your hand and you're not that I have a kid, but I've always, like, I love kids. I play with other people's kids. Like, I go babysit other people's kids for fun, right? The when you see life, right, growing, and you see the meaning in it, you no longer, I don't have the deep philosophical questions when I see the beauty of life.
It's like what I was saying, right? If God is here, right,
Yeah.
then you know God is here, right? And if meaning is here, you know meaning is here.
Mhm.
So there is, in fact, that experience. I know what you mean about like being around kids, and the kid is sort of full of vitality, and you can sort of, you aren't like that. You're just the old person you are, but you see the kid and you sort of get to partake in that. Like, this vitality, it's not mine, right? But it's part of reality. And so that this reality I'm in is like more enjoyable and it's better, right? That's interesting, because that makes me think, like, what can you do to like have more vitality in your life? And like, probably
Have
you
a
shouldn't
kid.
go around like a vampire sucking it out of children, but probably there's a way to do it that's good. Um, that is interesting.
Well, there are certain things which are anti-rivalrous. So we were talking about this. By the way, Truth Capital Crime, I have no idea who you are. It says I am not a troll. Nobody, you're new here. Hello. Yes, we are live, and yes, we are paying attention to you. But so there's this concept called rivalrous goods, which are for, well, there's a concept of exhaustible and inexhaustible goods. So, for example, a cake is exhaustible. You consume it, I have it, and therefore it's rivalrous. So,
Right.
you have it, I have it. We can't both have it.
Right.
Then there are inexhaustible rivalrous goods, which, for example, a hammer, right?
Mhm.
You have the hammer, or I have the hammer. You using the hammer doesn't appreciably change the hammer. So you can use it, then I can use it, then you can use it, right? We can share it, but only one of us can have it at a time. What's happened in our society is we increasingly have what can be described as anti-rivalrous goods. And unfortunately, this is something people don't talk about. I was actually talking to somebody who is getting his PhD in economics, and I brought this up, and he's like, I had never heard of that before. And my answer was, that's not a criticism of you. That's a criticism of this, of like our field of economics right now. Eric Weinstein actually brought this up. Our society is increasingly, so we've started talking about non-rivalrous goods. So what's a non-rivalrous good? Music, right? Mm-hmm. Or a YouTube video. You can watch the YouTube video, I can watch the YouTube video. So intellectual property is, we generally call it non-rivalrous. Mm-hmm. But now we've started creating things which are anti-rivalrous. Facebook, Twitter, these are anti-rivalrous, meaning that my consumption of it increases your enjoyment of it. Okay? The more I use Facebook, the more you can use Facebook, the more I use Twitter, the more you can use Twitter. So these things are anti-rivalrous. And increasingly, we have more and more of these goods in our society, which are anti-rivalrous, in which really we want more people involved. We want to get, and I think you can actually back engineer that into a lot of things like religion, right? So my religion is anti-rivalrous. If more people are members of my religion, that improves my relationship with my religion and with them, right?
Right.
And so in a sense, I think child raising, right? If you're raising a child, that improves my life. If I'm raising a child, that improves your life. And both of us raising children, in fact, improves both of our lives in ways that we could not really do, right? So
Right.
I think the concept of like sucking life out of the child is actually really wrong. We're talking about, and I'm actually thinking, did you watch my post-Platonic propositions video?
I did, and I don't think I really got it. I don't think I really understood what you were getting at. I was asking you I was in the chat. I was asking you like, okay, where are the forms? Are the forms just like design patterns? What's going on? Why is this so attached to Plato, even though you don't seem to talk about Plato very much?
So yeah, I mean the forms. So I actually don't care about Plato really, and it's part of the problem here is Neoplatonism is a lot of people thinking they understood Plato and presenting their ideas as if they were Plato's ideas. And it was like, when we look back, it's like, no, you came up with this stuff yourself and you're attributing it to Plato. Okay. And that's the part of the problem of Neoplatonism. And for me, so I do believe in the Kabbalistic lab leak. I believe that actually what happened was that the Kabbalah, the Jewish esoteric meaning teachings were actually taught by Moses to a select group of people before it was revealed by Rabbi Isaac Luria 500 years ago. Only certain people were aware of it, but these ideas were imparted to people who ended up teaching it to Plotinus, and that's where I believe Plotinus got it from. And Vervaeke kind of laughed at that when Sam brought it up. But so for me, as far as I'm concerned, I don't actually care about real Neoplatonism.
Sure. Neo-Kabbalism. How's Neo-Kabbalism going?
So, I mean, I don't even want to say Neo-Kabbalism. I believe in the Kabbalah, and I believe it is originally true, and I believe the Lurianic Kabbalah is true. And so I would say that, yes, that spiritually, God created words, right? The verse says, Lo'olam havaya devar chad nitzav b'shamayim. So forever, Tetragrammaton, your word stands in the heavens, right? So God spoke the 10 statements we believe that he spoke. And through those words, through the words of God and what it means for God to speak, right? So this is taught at length in there's a book called Tanya, which is considered kind of like the core of Chabad Hasidic teaching. And in that book, there's a group of, I think it's 10 chapters called The Gates of Unity and Faith. Shar Hayichud Ve'Ha'emuna. Yes, it is available on the where he discusses this, and I just read it over because I was talking to somebody else from the channel. I'm not gonna say who it was, but somebody else from the channel, and he also brought up these ideas, and so I linked it to him. In fact, I can send you the link that I sent to him because it's right there. And you know what? I will go ahead and put it into the chat. Why is this not? It's not working. Copy. Paste. There we go. And I will send it to you as well. So as far as I'm concerned, right, the truth is that God's words, right, and the concepts which God created through the Hebrew words and the Torah, because the Torah is the blueprint for life, is what animates the world.
Is what animates the world. God's word, which is.
I lost you. Yeah. Hopefully he will be back. Well, while Roman's gone, I will repeat what I was saying. We went far afield. There he is.
Yeah, sorry, my internet's a little funny.
The last thing you go ahead.
Sure. So you were talking about God made these words. This is how God made the world by making these words. I said, or was going to say, I don't know if you heard it. This sounds like Genesis 1, but this seems like maybe you think this is deeper than Genesis 1. That this is like, I think I swear to God, I read this somewhere, which was like at the beginning, in the beginning, God created, and what it says in the Hebrew version is it says et, which is that it means like, oh, right, God created the alphabet, which means that God created all of the features of the universe that God has to make a world, i.e., it doesn't say God created time, but we affirm, we believe that God created time, something like this.
So, yeah, I mean, the first verse of Genesis, I think it's the Zohar Chadash, which is spends it's a whole book devoted to entirely to the first word of the Bible, Bereshit. And there are a lot of Jewish teachings that start with like Genesis 1:1. And I mean, I have to say, like, I teach Aleph Bet. I teach people the basics of Hebrew because that's what I'm qualified to teach. Okay. And when I say that I believe that the Torah, just the learning Tanakh, is like arithmetic, and then Talmud is like learning algebra, and the Kabbalah is like learning calculus. I've never studied the actual Kabbalah. I have studied some Kabbalistic teachings. I am not a very good student of the Talmud. I have studied some of the Talmud. But from my study of just Tanakh, right, which I feel like I do know enough Tanakh, I know arithmetic.
Okay.
From my study of arithmetic, I can tell that we're talking about things which are deeper and better and explanations that are building upon the Tanakh. So this is been part of what I've stressed a lot to a lot of people is I don't the secrets of the Torah, right? They're not. It's not like I'm trying to hide anything from you. It's that I can't teach you calculus. First of all, because I don't know calculus, but I can't teach you even algebra without you knowing arithmetic. If you don't know 2 + 2 = 4 and 5 × 5 = 25, you can't learn what is deeper and higher level. And like there is definitely a lot more there. Like, right? When I talk like the depth of the Torah, so I have to say I have a hard time even referring to the New Testament as the Greek Bible, right? Certainly because I don't believe it's a New Testament, but like even comparing it as a Bible to the Hebrew Bible for me is like kind of cheapening the word Bible, because like the depth and the beauty, like the analogy I always make is if you've never been to the ocean, a picture of the ocean is beautiful. But when you want to go swimming and you've actually gone swimming in the ocean and you've felt the waves and you've dug down and like explored the bottom until you had to come back up for air, right? A picture is like, are you kidding me? All right. And for me, a translation or any text that is not miraculous the way that the Torah is in fact miraculous, right? That you can read it in way after way after way and like look at it we say there are shivim panim la Torah. There are 70 faces to the Torah, right? There really is. Like I have seen the wonder of it, and
it's productive. It's that kind of text.
It is a miraculous text. So truth capital crime says you can give us the Carl Sagan version. Again, it would just be a picture. It would just be a picture.
Yeah,
and
I mean that's why. Maybe that's why. But I'm trying to learn Hebrew. I'm trying to make a program to teach people Hebrew. I hope it works out.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say something about that. So yes, I also that's why I teach Hebrew, right? I want to allow people to have that. So the wonder of an alphabet is that, as opposed to, for example, Chinese, where it was the one-to-one relationship between a concept and a picture. An alphabet has a letter which corresponds to a sound, right?
Right.
And in that way, it's a psychotechnology that has really changed writing. So all alphabets ultimately come from the Hebrew alphabet. All human alphabets we know of. So it was the original alphabet, which I believe kind of, it's this is part of why it's like, for me, I would like to believe that even if I wasn't raised Jewish, I wasn't born Jewish, I would still end up being Jewish. But I don't. I can't say that.
What? You'll be, right? I said, if that's where God wants you, that's where you'll be, right?
That's I believe so. But in any case, for me, like the fact that yes, Hebrew all alphabets started with the original Hebrew or Phoenician, if you want to call it alphabet, right? So I am wary of putting too much emphasis, which I've seen some people do, on the connections between the letters and their meaning.
Okay.
And trying to understand the words. I like your concept. So I like your concept of helping people understand, like have some sort of story which helps them remember all the roots.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I do believe in the two radical theory.
Yep.
So
that's the theory that my program's supposed to run off of. You'd have two radicals, and then you'd get the three radicals, and then you.
Yeah, so I do believe in the two radical theory, even though it is a little controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, like just memorizing, it's not like there are that many. I mean, how many roots are there? I know
what you count. So there's only like a few hundred if you count like the 3 letters and the 2 letters. If you count every word in Strong's Concordance in Hebrew and Aramaic, it's like 9,000 words. It's not that many.
Yeah, but I don't like how he does it. Ben has Nesharim. He actually has been making a lexicon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it pulled up, and I'm not gonna try to find it right now. But he's been trying to make one, and he tends to agree with me about what the 3 root ones are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what his numbers are, but I would be surprised if it's more than 3,000.
Okay. There's 3,000. He has 3,000 words or 3,000.
I don't know how many. No. So he's doing what I do, which is he's making a dictionary of radicals, right?
Okay.
That this is, all the radicals, Aleph, and I think he's doing the 3 radical thing.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, I don't know how far along he is. I haven't looked at it. Maybe I should.
Well, like in Strong's Concordance, it'll say stuff like you'll have like 2 covers for one word. So it'll be like you'll have like one word for father and it'll be ab, and one word for father and it'll be like ab or something. And these will be like different places in Strong's Concordance.
Yeah, Strong's is so incredibly it is there's a lot of Christian theology which has, I would say, infected Strong's. His choice of what is a separate concordance number is, in fact, I would say, I would say that his choice is, I'm trying to find Ben's thing of his book. I think it's theologically based, and that's part of the reason why he has so many numbers. And frankly, like, I made that video and I do believe it. Christian translations lie to you, because Christians, there was that whole fight over whether or not they should translate the Bible at all. And
you're talking about when they wrote the
roots.
Are you talking about like when they translated it into English, like with Luther, or
yeah? So the debate was, should you do it at all? So I will put that in the chat and send it to you. So this is Ben's book, Counting Roots, where he's been trying to actually make a list of the roots. I don't know how many he ended up with. But
Yeah, I tried to scrape this book even, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And I was even trying to get a hold of him at some point and be like, "Hey, man, do you have like a spreadsheet with this stuff in it so I could like easily scrape it and get all this?"
I don't know if
he does. Than what I was looking at before, though. This I could probably use. This is good. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Ben. I mean, he knows his stuff. I offered him my channel. If the thing is, he's living off grid, but he knows his Hebrew, and I have confidence that he's seriously out there. I mean, I have my disagreements with him theologically quite a bit, but he's an honest person trying to investigate this stuff. So yeah, that's Ben.
Yeah, but the theory is not like, I don't think it has to be like perfectly etymological. I'm happy to use etymological tools and stuff that other people know. But I don't know enough Hebrew to make things that are perfectly etymological. I just know that, oh, right, I can make neat little stories by like taking one character and putting it next to another character. And with these little stories, I think I did this with Japanese. You can learn the 3,000 Joyo kanji in like 3 months. You can do it. I've done it before. It's very possible. And so, of course, I forgot them later, but that's because I'm doing that. So I know it's possible, and I think if I can actually get this tool off the ground, it can help a lot of people.
I agree with you 100%. Am I remembering correctly? I thought you lived in the Philippines. Is that right?
Past tense. I did live in the Philippines. My wife is Filipina. I currently live in Virginia. But before now, I lived in Bohol.
I think Dave lives near there, and actually, Yosef is moving to Washington D.C. apparently. But yes, you should go to church. Go to church. Why aren't you going to church?
Well, right now, I don't drive, so I couldn't drive to church. But also, I was busy building this Hebrew thing. So maybe once I finish this, I'll have time to go to church.
I do not excuse you.
Okay. Don't excuse me then.
This is part of Paul Vanderklay's thing that I really agree with him. And I have to say, I think Jesus correctly was teaching what Judaism teaches, which is the first commandment is love the Lord your God. The Lord our God is one God. Love him with all your heart and soul and might, and however you want to translate that verse. And the second commandment is like it. You shall love your colleague as you do yourself. Because I think that you need that second part there so that you don't end up in a solipsistic, type of hermetic life. I don't think that works. I do have to eventually go though. So another 10 minutes or so. But Paul is like, no, you need to actually go to church. You actually need to have a community. And I think, and the internet cannot replace that. Unfortunately, I think the internet can't. I wish it could. I don't think it can. That's why I've been doing my road trips. That's why I've been trying to like bring this into real life as much as possible. Because it just, we're not disembodied. And, when it becomes just between you, your solitary self, and God, I think there's something fundamentally off there.
Right. It's not good for man to be alone.
This is true. Obviously you're married, which is really nice and good, and I commend you for that. And I hope God blesses you with many, many children that you can afford and take care of. At the same time, I do think, and that's actually why I'm having a discussion. So on Thursday, I'm going to be talking to Catherine and her husband, Eamon. And the reason I want to talk to them as a couple is because I think we do this thing online where we kind of expect people to be like disjoint from their spouse in ways that isn't healthy. Like I know
what you mean, and what makes it worse is if people make it explicit. People have all this stuff against like codependency, and like people are supposed to depend on each other. That's what people are supposed to do. Supposed to depend on each other.
I agree with you. People, I personally kind of felt it was weird. Those people who have Facebook accounts that they share with their spouse.
My grandfather did that for a while. I think that was reasonable.
There are people who share social media accounts with their spouse, and as far as I'm concerned, that should be mandatory. I mean, really, this is somebody you share your entire life and your cognition with in a way that so why isn't, like, when we used to have house phones, right? And you would call somebody's house, sometimes they would answer, sometimes their wife would answer, right? And sometimes their kids would answer. This idea of atomistic individuals, it doesn't work. It just
it's not true. It's like a lie, right? You like think about it for like 5 minutes and you go like, I can sort of pretend it's true if I have money. If I have money and like I can ignore the fact that someone else made me the food when I bought the food, then I guess I can believe this lie. But if I didn't have money, I would realize immediately how false this was.
Yeah. The phrase I've coined is an individual human being is not a viable living organism. And I think too many people don't realize that. Like, if as an individual human being, forget the fact you can't reproduce, you can't even survive. Like the survivalists, right? They
didn't know how to do it when they were born, right? They didn't know how to make a knife from rocks, right?
But even that, if you were to drop them naked, I don't care in what environment, they're like, even a warm environment and stuff, drop them naked and alone. Yeah, good luck, right? Making your own clothes, making like they depend on all these tools which have been manufactured, including steel, right? What, like, make that dagger. I dare you to make that machete or that dagger, or that you're depending on so much to do all the things that you as a survivalist, like, how are you going to dig up the ore and make that steel, right? It's just such a ludicrous idea, yet we really do think that way. And I think Ian McGilchrist is right that it's a sickness of the left brain to view things in that way. So Big H told us this society is is an organism made up of the mass of its people. What's big H? Oh, I think this is like big Hebrew. I think this is because I mentioned Jewish in the thing. Oh, big H is Hitler. Mein Kampf explains this very well. I wish more people would read Mein Kampf.
I listened to it. I didn't really get it. I was like, I
oh,
listened to a bunch
it's
of it.
horrible. It's one of the dumbest books ever written. It is a book that could only be made famous by censoring it, which is why I think the censorship is deliberate. That's
interesting. That's an interesting idea. Why do you? So, like, no, really, why is it deliberate? By who? What's the motive in making Hitler's book famous?
Okay. Did you know that Antifa existed in Weimar Germany before?
There was a thing called Antifa. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these people have, and in fact, Antifa and the censorship helped create the Nazis. Helped. So Joseph Goebbels, it's funny, people don't know this. Joseph Goebbels was actually prosecuted for anti-Semitic speech. He was fined. And Julius Streicher went to jail. Der Stürmer was actually
wait. These are like the apostles in jail for the gospel of anti-Semitism. This is what they're doing. Is this the idea?
Say that again.
These are like the apostles of anti-Semitism going to jail and martyrdom for their anti-Semitic.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So it helps. So, and Antifa physically getting into all altercations with the brown shirts. It helped getting like people becoming authoritarian, being like, we need to crack down on this stuff. I think there's a Baptists and bootleggers thing going on where different people have different reasons for this. Mm-hmm. I certainly think there's a group of people who want to have that fight over again, and they think this time by doing it harder they'll win. And I think there are people who know this history and deliberately want to destabilize our society so that the communist utopia will, because you cannot convince me that all these Holocaust scholars don't know as much about the Holocaust as I do, which is, if you want anti-Semitism, like when I was in school, and I've done videos about this, when I was in college, we used to go around having debates with Holocaust deniers and like doing all this education stuff, and it helped bring down the level of anti-Semitism. It diffused these stupid ideas, right? Now we're doing the exact opposite, and I have to believe it's deliberate because we know how to undo this stuff.
So you did like a little history of Nazism thing for people to like help them understand what Nazism is, and okay.
Well, and we would actually have debates. So when I was in college, there was a guy who stood up in front. I went to USC, and there's this one street corner where basically everybody comes from, everybody enters the college through there, and he used to stand in front where thousands of people were entering the college every day with signs. And one of his signs was, psychology is tainted by lies and Judaism, right? He was an anti-Semite, like evangelizing anti-Semitism on a daily basis. There used to be Nation of Islam people selling their newspaper on a regular basis. Their newspaper used to be even more anti-Semitic than it is now. Have you heard of the Now I'm forgetting his Lyndon LaRouche.
Maybe just a little bit. I don't know entirely who you're talking about. I might have heard his name before.
So Lyndon LaRouche, he was much bigger than he is now, because with the internet, but people used to come onto campus and pass out his newspapers, and he's also a famous anti-Semite. I mean, not anymore, but at the time he was big. Mm-hmm. So what would happen is people would come to college, and you would have these anti-Semitic evangelists, and then we as the Jewish students would have to explain all this stuff, and you would explain all this stuff, and people would like understand what was going on, and what, like, for example, big talking point, the soap thing from the Holocaust, that never happened.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard all these crazy stories, and
the lampshade thing, that didn't happen. Turning people into lampshades, that didn't happen. That,
do you think the lies were invented to make the I don't know if you've seen the anti-Semitic thing, must 6 million, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
To make it seem like that isn't real either. Is this the idea?
Well, it's the idea is bad ideas are going to be out there, and the way you refute them is by refuting them, by showing why they're bad ideas, right? And that's
like I don't know about that story. I just know you told me it wasn't true, and I'm like, yeah, if that sounds like an urban legend type thing that's spread around, because it's kind of a creepy idea, right? Ooh, human lampshades, right?
It's spread around, and there were people who actually believed it, but it's not true. There was a swimming pool in Auschwitz. It wasn't for the Jews, by the way, but there was a swimming pool in Auschwitz, right? So these things, right? The electronic pool that turns them to ash was fake as well. I've never heard of that. Whatever. There's reasonable criticism of Holocaust history, that's actually true. Hey, go have at it, right? But we've started once again doing what we know doesn't work, which is censoring people. And censoring people, that's the best way. And the only reason I can think of to do that is because you're actually trying to recreate the things that happened in Weimar Germany.
I think that's the only reason?
I can't. If you might be incredibly dumb, but I don't believe that all these, the ADL, why is the ADL not speaking out and saying the same things that I'm saying, which is censorship causes anti-Semitism.
Okay.
If you want to cause anti-Semitism, censor people.
I mean, that makes sense. The thing that I think of what I've heard, and I don't even know if this is true, is back in the 70s, you had this big upswing and this sort of hippie movement type stuff. And this was sort of part of the influence of this was Maoism, and it was all about trying to sort of, and Maoist idea was sort of the idea of that you need to change the culture to move us towards this communist thing. And that this is what it is, right? It's not like Mao was against censorship or anything like this. Now, I don't know if it's true even, but it fits.
This is Lindsay's idea, James Lindsay's idea, and I agree with him. And I do actually kind of have to go. It's been 2 hours. Yeah. But James Lindsay's thing is that they're trying to create a revolution. They're trying to destabilize our society because they saw in the 50s and 60s and 70s that, in fact, our society was too stable. There wasn't racism. There wasn't is it anti-Semitic to point out Sabbatai and Frankists who are hiding within the Jewish community? Again, it's this type of stuff. Without censoring the stupidity of this stuff, people wouldn't believe it. the only reason there are people who believe this stuff is because they get censored and they're like, see, there must be some truth in it, as opposed to people be like, you're being like crazy. This Sabbatean Frankists, like the Frankists were actually Christians. Who is they? That's the trick we use when blaming everything on Jews. So who is they? Honestly, that's part of the problem is there's too many people who are engaged in all of this stuff. And it's not secret. Like when you look, James Lindsay is actually documenting the open, like Rudy Deutsch, Rudy Deutschke, I think his name is Rudy Deutschke. Let me find. Yeah, Rudy Deutschke. By the way, not Jewish, German, not Jewish at all. He's one of the open conspirators who I think helped engineer. So there he is. That's him, Rudy Deutschke, not Jewish at all. It's funny. A lot of these like people, when you start talking to them, they think all kinds of like anybody with a German last name they think is Jewish. It's like you think a majority of people with German last names are Jewish, or they tell me like the Kochs are Jewish, or there's this idea. Who did they? There was somebody. Oh, the guy from the World Economic Forum. What's his name? What?
The World Economic Forum?
Yeah, the supervillain guy.
Supervillain guy?
Yeah, he looks like a supervillain. Klaus Schwab.
Oh, you think he looks like a supervillain? Okay.
Have you seen him dressed up like a supervillain? There's a picture of him. Let me find this picture of him that's really funny. He's dressed in this weird. There it is. Let me find this picture. Where's this? Come on. I'm trying to make it big. There we go. Okay. There is page. Does he not look like a supervillain?
Oh wow, he looks like. Oh wow, I remember going to my wife's church, and she goes to she's a Catholic, and they wear like this purple. It's like that but purple, and I was like, why is there a wizard at the church?
Hey, I'm all for like costumes and stuff, but it's like, and there's this theory online that he's Jewish, which is completely bonkers, but people have it.
Do you know why he's wearing that? Is he a Mason or what? Is he a member of some weird religion?
I don't think so. I don't know why he was wearing this. There are a few pictures of him wearing weird get-ups, and it's like, dude, like the World Economic Forum, these people are just, they say the most insane things. They're like clowns of themselves. I don't know. Okay, I have to go. It's been
yeah. You gotta go. Go do your stuff.
I will talk to you later.
See ya.